Are we ready to go? Everybody awake? I asked you a question. Now here's how this works. Is everybody awake and say yes or no? Everybody, that doesn't work. My name is Brian Kilcourse. I'm a managing partner of RSR Research, and you are at a big idea session. It's called The Power of Do, Analytics-Driven Assortment and Price Tuning. Everybody at the right place?
Yay!
Yes, okay. So let me ask a question. How many of you are retailers? Great. Now, how many of you are from the vendor community, the solutions community? Great, okay. From the retailers, how many of you are on the business side? Now, I'm assuming the rest of you are from the technical side. Is that right? How many of you don't know? Oh. I'm not sure anymore either. A quick word about myself. I'm one of the managing partners of RSR Research. I was a retail CIO for a number of years, been coming to NRF longer than I care to discuss, and I hope you all had a great time last night. We're going to talk today about analytics, and of course we all know that analytics is moving beyond decision support and retrospective looks at our business performance, and we're moving toward true decision making. So the notion of actionable information in the operational arena has become very, very important to us all. And for that, we have to have faster, more accurate, and more impactful analytics based actions in merchandising, particularly for assortment and for price, for allocation, promotions, and inventory. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, a word about this format before I introduce the keynote speaker here. We're having a conversation. It won't look like one because Atul will be up here on the podium and I'll be sitting down there, but envision a Charlie Rose style conversation where he and I are sitting in a couple of easy chairs, just asking and answering questions, and just happen to be listened in on by 200 of our favorite people. That's you. So we'll go through this question and answer session and hopefully give you some practical guidance. First of all, about what Atul is seeing in the marketplace, and then how you can take that home and use that. So I'm going to now introduce our speaker, and I'm going to introduce his company. Atul Jalan, to my left, is the CEO and Managing Director of Manthan Systems. He founded the company in 2004, so they just turned their 10th anniversary, and it's all pleased to give them a round of applause. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lasting 10 years in this world is an amazing feat. I think we can all agree. But interestingly enough, Manthan is Atul's fourth successful venture, so he has not been idle. A little bit about Manthan Systems. Manthan Systems is a provider of analytic systems for global retail and CPG organizations. Their solutions help retailers to become more profitable by improving the decision-making processes and practices. One of the things I really like about Manthan, and as we've watched them mature in the marketplace, is their systems are very practical. They're very tuned to real use cases that retailers take advantage of. And so I like that. And he's a very practical man, as you will hear. His portfolio solutions include merchandising analytics, customer insights and loyalty, vendor insights, e-commerce insights, and of course, store operational analytics. And another round of applause for these guys in a second. Last week, Manthan was named by Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores as the IT Vendor of the Year. So there you go, another hand. So I'm going to let him take this podium, and I'm going to sit down there, and then we're going to have a conversation. And we hope you enjoy it and that you learn a few things. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for choosing to come and hear our point of view on how analytics is transforming from a decision support to decision making in now to a decision execution system. Thank you for all the kind words and introduction, Brian.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, here's our first question. So I have them right here, so I won't mess them up. But the answers might vary. We'll see. There's a big push in the industry today, Atul, towards more proactive, really predictive analytics. And this is a big difference from the day when I was a CIO, when product movement was really the principal proxy for demand. Nowadays, we're using business analytics in a more proactive way to influence actions in the sales floor as they're happening. What's changed? Tell me a little bit about, in your opinion, what's changed in the last several years?
Sure. Two significant changes to my mind. Everybody can hear me? I assume yes. Two significant changes which has happened to analytics over the last couple of years. Number one significant change to my mind is that information has become intelligent. And this intelligent information is no more inert data. This intelligent information can arrive tailored to seekers' context and circumstances. I'll talk more about it as we go along in our conversation, Brian, by way of examples. The second most significant change that has happened to analytics is that analytics has closed the loop, in sense that analytics has truly become actionable. To my mind, the first phase of analytics was about automation of business processes. Then the last frontier of business computing, if you will, is that analytics has become the intelligent driver of those underlying business automation systems and therefore the business processes. From a retailer's point of view, their expectation from analytics today to our minds is threefold. Number one, it should help them make smarter decisions. It should help them unearth associations that data and pattern recognition could achieve, and unearth associations and make discoveries of things that are otherwise subterranean or counterintuitive, like the apocryphal story of diaper and beer. And to my mind, take the romance out of that story and make those kind of discoveries a daily thing, if you will. The second expectation from analytics is to help retailers arrive at an optimal decision. Okay, by predicting the outcome. Decision making is not a binary option most of the time. You know, decisions become difficult to take because they can go many ways. So analytics could help today to help you predict the outcome of your decisions. And third expectations to my mind is, and most importantly, is help you close the loop, action that optimal decision. And I think that's, to my mind, is the fundamental change, Brian, which I'll paraphrase myself again. And information has become intelligent and analytics has become actionable. At Manthan, we paraphrase this paradigm by analyze, decide, do. Okay. And, sorry.
No, it's very good. So analyze, decide, and do. It's not just analyze and decide what you're going to do next time. Yeah. No. That's interesting. So when I think of this as a closed loop. You mentioned closing the loop. So one of the things that used to be, we had it in our company, we had a small group of people whose job it was to analyze voluminous data, who was always product oriented, and then there was a small group of people who would actually consume that data. Typically financial analysts and merchandise analysts. Those were the two. Never got to store operations. But those times have clearly changed. And in order to operationalize this, we want to talk about the do of this. And so you're certainly on record. I've checked you, I've Googled your name, and you've done a lot of speaking and writing about this analyze, decide, and do. Let's talk about each of these steps. I'd like for you to
sure,
give
Brian,
your insights on how that's working.
Sure. I'll give you a bit of context and then maybe enumerate my point by way of few real-life examples. As Brian just shared, we think we are the pioneers of retail analytics, and we have been doing this for the last 10+ years now. While speaking to our customers over the last 3-4 years, we realize that often there is a gap between the insights that our math, our products, our application provides, and our customers' ability to act upon in good time, often resulting in opportunity loss. As you would imagine and realize that understanding of data is one thing, what to do with that data, another. And the ability to act upon what to do with that data is totally another. To our mind, that three sets put together completes the virtuous cycle of analyze, decide, and do. So very quickly, how it works. The first part is analysis. Analysis is basically laying down, giving you insights, giving you perspective. Let's say you are trying to mark down markdown prices or fine-tune your prices, then I should, as an analytical system, help you provide multiple perspective, help you provide insight on the number of decision options that decisions that you could take in terms of price optimization. Decide is basically simulating, as I said earlier, simulating the outcome, okay, calibrating that decision with the business constraints, okay, and then arriving at an optimal decision. The do part, we realized often there are organizational realities. You know, the math, the let's say the price example becomes a domain of the quant group most of the time, okay, and there is a very loose handshake, if you will, between the quant group and the business who's supposed to carry this new mathematically strained prices. So that is where what we did was, once you have decided on the optimal, let's say the price option, we have built in as the do part some very interesting, innovative and creative tools like the business workflows, which you can use to socialize the new price that you have in mind. Get reviewed, get approvals as the case may be, and write down in this example of price to the underlying price management system. And thus, if you realize, Brian, affecting a real business process change,
right,
in real time. I'll take an example here. There is a customer of ours. I'm afraid I'm not able to take the name. He's the number one cosmetics company, number one, number two cosmetics company in the world today. And they have mandated us. We are running their price center of excellence. Okay. So what we have done, of course, we bring to bear all math and all sciences to optimize the prices. We don't have, this is not the platform, but we are doing some real cool stuff there by bringing in some aspects of particle physics-led math to optimize the prices. Most importantly, what we have been able to do, their business model of this company, by the way, is that their go-to market, much like Amway, if you will, is through sales rep. They don't sell through stores. Okay, and we have improved the number of price changes that they used to make hitherto by 300%.
300% price change.
Yeah, 300%. So we are not only bringing out the best price that mathematics can bring, we are helping them in real time to calibrate their businesses, to then calibrate this mathematically derived prices with the constraint and the context of their business. You know, whether it could be a macroeconomic condition, some business objective. And in case of this company, this dynamically produced prices are pushed out, published on the mobile application of their sales representative. The other example I could share is, we have this portfolio on customer analytics. And there are three pieces, which is basically architected based on our philosophy of analyze, decide, do. So the first piece is Customer 360, which basically gives you a handle on your customer, who she is, you know, when she buys, where she buys from, when she buys this, what else she buys, what stimuli of price, promotion, product attribute that she responds to. Okay, and we are trying, our goal is to really get as close as we could mathematically possible to a segment of one. Recognize the uniqueness of the consumer, of the customer, recognize the uniqueness of what we are. Then we ask ourselves, so what? Once I understand who my customer, what could I do with this? To our mind, two things. You could drive personalized dynamic pricing. You could drive personalized assortments. Number three, you could drive personalized marketing, promotions, and offer making. And that is where our second piece of the application in customer analytics portfolio comes along, which is Target One. Helps you decide what kind, I'm just taking a marketing example first, helps you decide what kind of marketing, what kind of promotion, what kind of personalized communication, what kind of relationship that you can build with your customer. And the third piece is the do piece. Again, we let our customer retailers private label our mobility application, which they then distributed to their consumers. And the do part is delivering of that analytically derived promotions and offer in context of the customer. And there's context of customer's circumstance. I am in store in context of what my trip looks to a store looks like, whether online, offline, what the circumstances, in context of, and it kind of takes into account my understanding of who she is, her purpose of trip to my store, again online, offline, and several other perspectives to deliver at the moment of truth, if you will, a promotion, offer, or whatever. So that therefore closing the loop again of analyze, decide, and do.
Yeah. I'm going to engage the audience here for just a second. I'm going to go back to price and ask you some questions, just to do an instant poll here. How many of you are using analytic engines for price optimization? You raise your hands. Or is it too proprietary to answer? How many of you have seen an increase of price changes in the last year in your stores? Okay, we have one volunteer over there. I'm not going to pick on you, so don't be afraid to raise your hand. Okay. How many of you have seen a decrease in price changes in your store? How many of you say it's the same? It must be everybody else. All right. No real changes. I want to talk a little bit about the use of business intelligence to make assortment decisions, because of course that's our topic. You know, in the old days, there were a few basic inputs to the assortment process. Of course, first of all, it was what was being introduced by the manufacturer or the supplier, what was hot in the marketplace, of course, and finally, what we wanted to be a part of. We would decide assortment based on where we wanted to be number one or number two. But now retailers are able to glean new information from consumers by gauging sentiment. You hear a lot of stuff on the floor about sentiment. And I think of this as non-transactional signals from the consumer coming from a variety of media that are helping us to understand and respond more quickly to demand as it's happening, so we can actually impact it in a real way. Does this new set of data points, does it augment or does it replace all the ways we used to determine our assortment?
Sure. Great question to my mind, Brian. Look, we all understand that understanding the consumer demand is essential, to come out with right forecast, which then derives assortment decisions. Today, other than the traditional data sources, social media is a great channel, if you will, to glean the consumer and the market sense of both preferences, product preferences, and demand. Okay, we have been advising a lot of our customers to use social media to do three things at least. Number one, use social media to do product test launches. Okay. Number two, involve your customers in the product design process. Number three, and this has been successful. Last Christmas we did this in November, and our customers really reaped the benefit of in last Christmas season. Number three, put up a pre-launch offer of some of your products. That response to whether the test launch, the pre-launch offer, or the involvement in the design process works as a very, very solid data mimic to understand and get a sense of consumer preferences and demand, which then can be used to drive your assortments.
That's fascinating. So for pre-launches, we saw that emerge a couple of years ago. Are you seeing more retailers trying to do those kinds of things?
Yes, and I think that's an outstanding use case, if you will, Brian. One of the outstanding use case of social media, of the three things that I said. Yes, I'll tell you, there has been serendipitous discoveries of this. We have also been able to, in the process, understand a very different customer behavior and preference, which otherwise we won't. And that has helped them, especially for the multi-channel retailers and online retailers, to not only do A/B split testing, not offer A or B site, because that's like a democracy, and democracy has own problem because it becomes a vote on popularity. It's the majority wins. And we discussed a while earlier, the idea is to get as close to individual, unique preferences as possible.
Sure.
Through this process, we have been able to guide our customers to not A versus B split, okay, but offer both A and B online sites based on your consumers' preferences, purchase history, web history, social graphs that you have about your consumers and so on.
So that's interesting because a lot of what we're chatting about is I would think of as the beginning of a campaign. It's testing and launch to see if it's going to work, if it's not work, if you need to make some changes to make it more attractive to customers or not, or whether you've hit a home run and you're ready to rock. Do you see retailers using sentiment analysis to change something that's a campaign that's in flight? So for example, a promo or a markdown?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's again, I said, it gives you a, it gives you a great test and learn platform. That's what I'm essentially saying. Whether it is about new product launch, assortment, your marketing initiative, it gives you a great test and learn platform.
Yeah.
Okay, and so.
Well, that's interesting. I'm fascinated by this. I watch my own kids they talk to each other via various social media. It always costs me money for some reason. One of my daughters will say that she likes this dress, and she'll tell my other daughter, and then I'll end up buying that one for her too.
It's very interesting. I can go on, and I honestly don't I'm holding a brief for social media here. I understand it's new, and it's so transforming that I also hear a lot of riff-raff around social media. It pains me when I see people don't put that social media and what it could do and not do in right perspective and the right place. Okay,
so this is fascinating because we're really talking about non-transactional data, which is I want to follow up on that just a little bit. So this, of course, in broad terms, is the new data that we're trying to analyze, along with all the transactional data that we've always had. When it comes back to pricing, when I remember the pricing systems that we first implemented, they were based on a couple of assumptions. I either wanted to build traffic or I wanted to build profit. So I would adjust my pricing accordingly. And the rule of thumb is what the customer is willing to bear. And we determined that by movement. But we either got it right or we got it wrong. How does this non-transactional customer sentiment or customer data play into pricing decisions today?
Great question, Dan. A bit of context again. I think there'll be a general agreement around the fact that in the story of evolution of pricing, the world has quickly moved on from cost plus intuition or even rule-based pricing. The pricing today is, again, I'll say mathematically strained, dynamically arrived, personalized prices. Dynamic pricing, though, Brian, I would think is very demanding of data and data analytics. Right. To achieve dynamic pricing, you need 4 analytical perspectives. Again, you need a complete understanding of your customer, including her purchase history, again, the customer segment that she belongs to, understanding the churn propensity. What we do is we lay down the economic value of the customer. Internally at Manthan, we call this the loyalty quotient. So that's one perspective that you need to model. The next model that you need to layer is the whole market data, which includes, again, the sentiments, the sense that you have gleaned from the social media, okay? Understanding of the store demographics. When I say store demographic here, I mean the store demographic, the traditional store demographic to your physical, and the store demographic in the social virtual world, as it were.
So the psychographic.
The psychographic, the psychographic again has also transformed in its own whole meaning and intent. The third layering of that is also fine understanding of cost to serve, Brian, including your supply chain and inventory cost, okay, to arrive at dynamic and personalized pricing.
Yes.
I think, and Amazon has already started doing that. I'm sure a lot of us shop with Amazon today. If Brian and I were to buy, let's say, go and log in onto Amazon and buy this, there are 70% chances that you and I are being served different prices today by Amazon, which is basically respecting yours and mine different loyalty quotient and economic value to Amazon. So it's not product bundling. People who bought this have also liked this historically, and therefore you may also like it. But it's dynamically served price bundling. So it started.
That's interesting. So, how about external factors when you think about pricing? We were talking about a lot about the customer. What about external factors? Things like the weather, the economy.
Of course. To my mind, when I was talking about those 4 perspectives, I didn't complete it. So, customer perspective, market perspective, the cost to serve understanding, and the whole external factor or external data of weather, seasonality, macroeconomic conditions, and so on, that has to be layered to really arrive at personalized and dynamic pricing.
You know, you mentioned dynamic pricing. I like the term, but the truth of the matter is that retailers and technology providers have been talking about price optimization for years, and many over time have suggested dynamic price changes inter-day based on real-time analytics. So the concept has been around for quite a long time. I remember the first time I heard it was when someone was trying to interest our company in electronic shelf tags back in the day. But ignoring the technical complexities of this idea, particularly in this store, it's notable that consumers themselves now have much greater visibility into competitive prices via their smartphones. We all do that. How many of you, when you shop, while you're in a store, check the internet in some fashion for a competitive price? Yeah, sure. It's not showrooming. We just want to make sure that we're getting a fair price, not getting gouged. We do it all the time. So, and truth be told, what I use is Amazon. Is there anybody from Amazon here? I don't want to offend anybody. I use Amazon all the time to read the reviews and to check prices, but I buy while I'm in the store because I like to shop. I'm just one of those guys. A recent consumer panel that we conducted showed that price lookup is the #1 use of consumer smartphones. And I think there was a study that was released yesterday by IBM that said exactly the same thing. So to make a broad statement from that, are the days of price sensitivity analysis, are they done? Are we over with that?
Over. To my mind, over. Honestly, it's over. A few things. I think that the days of a perfect price for a category, for item, irrespective who's looking at it, is over. We are truly in an era of solo momi. I keep saying not dure mimi, solo momi, social, local, mobile, and me as
say that again. Say that again.
As the
solo momi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I think personalized price is a reality, and I remember hearing Mike Duke of Walmart recently, where he said we are entering an era of price transparency. Mm-hmm. Okay, there would not be one price, again, as I said. And to achieve this personalized price, there are 2 things. It's not as challenging as it sounds. There are 2 things that you need. Okay, one is, again, I'll say, you need understanding of your customer. You need understanding of the lifetime value or the economic value of your customer. And you need to sync that, marry that with what would you do when you're optimizing the prices of your product. So the optimal price of your product wedded to the personalized price that you want to, the economic value of your customer is equal to personalized price, to my mind.
So a couple of takeaways I heard here so far in this conversation. First of all is that the non-transactional data is becoming much more important than ever before, and equal in importance to the transactional data that we've been studying for all these years. And the second one I think you folks can all take home is this notion of solo mo-me.
Absolutely, sir.
Social, local, mobile, and personalized. I love that. Okay. Let's keep going on this subject, because I'm picking up on things that we hear out in the sales floor, and certainly stuff that RSR writes about all the time. And one of the things, another phrase that's starting to be abused, is this notion of endless aisle. But how is the notion of endless aisle affecting assortment planning for retailers nowadays? And can advanced analytics help them to implement these kinds of strategies?
Again, we understand that the whole paradigm of online shopping has shaken up the retail as we used to know. Retail is no more a linear equation as it used to be. It's a very non-linear dynamic. Customer could buy online, okay, pick up the goods from your store. You don't only sell what is earlier. I'll contrast that. Earlier, before, you would have a store. A consumer would come to store, look at a store, buy what was in the store, go back. Today, customer, you as a retailer, consumer expects that when I interact with my retailer to get what I expect to get from that retailer, the whole phenomena of endless aisle. Okay, and to achieve that, I need to understand the channel of demand, my customer's path to purchase, what she purchased online, what she purchased in the store, where does she expects the fulfillment to be made. And again, the fulfillment may not be made from the brick and mortar physical store. There could be a direct store. The DSD has a new meaning.
DSD does have a new meaning.
You are today in this newer supply chain and omni-channel world, Brian, as you understand, there could be a direct drop shipment to customer's place. So the whole equation of customer buying with a retailer has become non-linear. And analytically speaking, to achieve that, the good news is not as complicated sound. To analytically speaking, to achieve that, you need 2-3 things. You need a data infrastructure which gives you a 360-degree view on your inventory. An item wherever it is. It could be in your store, it may not be in your store. It could be in a store, it could be in your warehouse, it could be in your supplier's warehouse. So you need item level visibility into your data.
So I'm starting to collect a lot of interesting tidbits that these folks can take home, but we're talking now about disruption, the disruption of what people in my category have called omni-channel retailing. I'm starting to say that we should stop using that term and stop talking about channels.
Absolutely.
We're talking about brands. We're talking about a brand experience.
Absolutely.
But online demand is also affecting in-store assortment planning, of course, and forecasting more and more. And we saw this in the data for the fourth quarter, is that there's a lot of orders that are being triggered online that are going to affect store inventory. Now, ultimately, this affects the supply chain, of course. But how should retailers use these new analytics that your company is providing to overcome the challenges forecasting the impact of that kind of activity? Because it's becoming significant now.
Absolutely. Somebody was sharing me a data that for certain categories at Walmart, seemingly 40 to 50% of online purchase customers picked up the stuff on their physical stores. So again, that's what I was trying to allude to a bit earlier, Brian. Yeah. The path to purchase, which means where I buy things from, what I buy online, what I browse offline but buy online, what I expect to be delivered to me, what I want to pick up from your store, that has changed. The dynamic has changed. Okay, and again, analytics saves. Analytics could help in terms of getting a handle on channel of demand, channel of fulfillment, as it were.
This is interesting. Really, really interesting stuff. Now, I'm going to summarize here because our objective is for you to have some take-homes that you can take back to your shop. And I want to make sure I've got these right as we're running out of time here. But the first thing you talked about is closing the loop between analytical and operational systems. So this seems to be keyed on what you said on two really important things. First of all, of course, is 360 degrees of inventory visibility and what you called customer 360. Which is the same thing on the customer side of it. And a big component of that, of course, is the non-transactional data that we're all collecting.
Absolutely.
You used a term, customer loyalty quotient.
Yes.
That is.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit more on that, just for a second.
I think It's a reality that you have to really imagine your business through from a customer's point of view. Whether it comes to assortments, it comes to pricing, or it comes to promotions. I don't think it's a nice to have thing. I think the whole dynamics of online retail, social commerce, social media has shaken things up in a nice way. And I don't think retailers need to worry or fret, as it were. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, I swear, to really rethink, remodel their businesses. It's an outstanding opportunity, and analytics can help.
So now, as it relates to that, there's two things that you think are happening right now. First of all, dynamic pricing is real, in your opinion.
Absolutely.
It replaces our old way of thinking about price
Amazon is a shining example of it.
Sure. That's interesting. And the other one is that you believe that if you implement this analyze, decide, and do, you now have the ability to impact campaigns as they are in
I
place.
just told you, for this customer, is tier 1 cosmetics company, 300% change. The number of new price advice that they generate in the system today has moved up by 300%.
So I'm going to ask you one last question. I was a recovering retail technologist. One of the challenges that we always had in the day was that there was so much data to consume that we couldn't possibly plow through it. Are the technologies that are being shown out on the floor today, are they capable of handling those volumes?
Yes, of course, of course. Look, outstanding number of developments. That's why these concepts, which has been around for a while, are coming to life. Look at all the developments in terms of database computing power. The cost of data storage,
nothing.
It's free. Big data, the respect for data, the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, totally new and unheard ways of interacting with information systems through voice, gesture, et al. I think we are ushering into a period. We are breaching the frontiers of computing, Brian. We are ushering into a period which a lot of people call industrial internet, or things which not only be connected, but be intelligent and aware of each other.
You're reminding me of an old story. I remember the first time I bought 1 gigabyte of storage. It cost $1 million.
Yes.
That cost $1 million.
So.
And my CEO came down, looked at it, and he said, "But it's not very large." Just a couple weeks ago, I went to Costco and bought 32 gigabytes for $54. Anyway, we are out of time, and I hope that you've got some take-homes that you can take with you. Let's put our hands together and thank Atul for his insights.